I'd like to welcome to the process of hip hop all the way from Compton, California, West Coast in the house. My man, OG Suicide. What's going on, my bro?
Hey, what's good, my peoples? What's
Hey
good?
man. Hey man, a great day, man. I appreciate you getting on the show, man. And you Compton legend. And
Oh yeah,
so I
mandatory.
definitely want to chop it up with you, man. And I wanted to start with you have such a wealth of experience, man. You've been in the game a long time. How did you get started, man? Tell me about your background, how you got started, and actually interested into hip hop, not as a consumer, but
Yeah,
how
yeah,
you
yeah.
got into that MC role.
Well, most definitely, I never really played sports. Sports never was my thing. So, music was something that I always wanted to venture into. So back in '87, me and my bro man Gangster, who Gangster was the artist. He eventually became a member of the Comrades. But me and Gangster used to go to the studio a lot back in '87, and we used to go to the studio. We done, work with Mixmaster Spade as well, back in them days. So music was something that, I just, dibbled and dabbled into way back then.
hmm in the early 80s, again, we come from the same region, round about the same age. And, I remember 86, 87, when, your only access to hip hop was through K-Day on the West Coast. That was pretty
Yeah,
much the only access. Or if you had if you got, you had a buddy or you was able to get a mixtape, hip hop was not accessible like it
yeah,
is, like it's been. It was just not there. It was the genre
yeah,
was just getting off the ground. And
yes.
so, and West Coast hip hop was obviously a little bit behind the East Coast counterparts. And so you and I had talked in a pre-interview, man, about some of the individuals, and you mentioned it right now, but I wanted you to elaborate. You know, Mixed Master Spade, Toddy,
Tidy T. Yeah, most
obviously
definitely.
Ice T is in there too. But how influential were they? NWA is the iconic West Coast group, but how influential were they to the West Coast hip hop movement?
Man, Mixmaster Spade and Tidy T was like one of the first, out of Compton to hit the radio. So it's really, man, technically, you can't really mention Compton without mentioning, Mixmaster Spade and Tidy T, and even Mixmaster Ken, as well, out of Compton. But the first to hit the radio was Mixmaster Spade and Tidy T. Back when McCullough Records was the major label back then in the '80s, was a
Yes.
major label. Yes.
Right, right. Yeah, for you non-West Coasters, yeah, McCullough record, everybody, that was you had to go, you went through them, and then again, people were selling mixtapes,
Oh
I
yeah.
remember, being a preteen and going to the Rhodium, and then you
Yeah.
could
Or the
buy a
cut swap
mixtape or,
meet.
and buying that and all that there, but Toddy T and Mixmaster Spade, they West Coast always had the reality raps, and obviously Bataram was a huge
Oh yeah,
hit.
Battleground was a
Huge
huge,
hit.
huge record that
But
my godfather put out. Leon Haywood put that record out.
yeah, we gonna get into that in
Oh
just a
yeah, but
second.
they record that they had that hit the radio was called "Just Say No,"
Yeah.
and I was in juvenile hall when I first heard that record on the radio. Back in like '86, I was in Central Juvenile Hall, getting ready to go to camp. Because I had caught some juvenile cases, and oh yeah, that was like one of the first records out of Compton to hit the radio.
And it was a reality rap, and that's actually what was going on. I mean, we were in the midst of the war on drugs, the Reagan
Yes,
administration, and you
yes,
literally had, I mean, Batarams, I'll just say terrorizing the black community in a lot of
oh yeah,
ways. They were, and it's interesting how many of the times that the Bataram, which is a military vehicle, when you really think about it, it was used
yes.
in residential situations, and they weren't even necessarily finding all these drugs that they thought they were going to be finding. So
Yeah,
that
more
that's
more
kind of a
more manpower than they needed. I was in a house back in '86 that actually had got hit by the bat around, and
yeah,
it was a trip, man. Just seeing a tank come through the wall, like, oh,
right. It was a military vehicle, man. This was not designed for, residential or I'll just say civil environments, man. It was a military vehicle, but it was such, I just remember that song was so catchy. We'd walk around singing it, you're laughing, but in reality, man, it was really being used. So how do you think that influenced, and I talked about NWA, but how did that influence them? Those early pioneers, man. How did that influence them?
As far as what the reality of it,
Right. Because they
I mean,
took that
coming from
blueprint.
Compton, coming from Compton and getting into music and doing music, the main thing you want to do is tell your story.
Mhm.
Whether no matter what side of Compton you're from, the east side, the west side, it's all about telling your story, how you live, what you've been through, what you experienced, from the hustle to the shootouts to you name it, to being incarcerated,
Mhm.
from the crimes that you committed. It just was a part of life.
Mhm. What was the when you first started? You had talked about your godfather is the great Leon Haywood, who for many of you don't know, I want to do something funky to you, you
Yeah.
know that go listen to that song. Some of you youngins that don't know, but that obviously was sampled by Dr. Dre on
Yes.
on nothing but a G thing, and
Yes.
became it catapulted Leon Haywood, who was already very much well known, obviously, in the black musical community, but that catapulted him into immortality because that song, that sample, that Dre used, but was just so
Classic.
iconic. But how did when you were starting? Were you influenced? I mean, you're obviously influenced by your godfather, but who were the artists that you either patterned yourself after or were heavily influential to your success?
I mean, to be real, who I was influenced by was my OGs in my neighborhood coming up. That really, was living that lifestyle. And me growing up right there with them, I was one of the youngsters that a lot of the older cats that was living that life. I was one of the youngsters that got embraced by them. When a
Mhm.
lot of cats my age didn't get embraced by them, but I was the one that they all took a liking to because I was that one man I wanted to know. I was always interested in what was going on, which led me to the things that I did growing up in Compton. But them was my biggest influences. Pretty much the people that raised me growing up in the neighborhood. But
Mhm.
musically, we all used to listen to the Mixmaster Space, the Tidy T's, Mixmaster Ken. I was doing music, pretty much that was the beginning stages of my music career in '87, like getting off the ground with it. And from there, I kind of like shifted away from it a little bit because I kind of got caught up more into the gangbanging lifestyle and going
Mhm.
back and forth, in and out of jail. So I
Mhm.
wasn't taking it as serious as I did after my suicide attempt.
Mhm. And I wanted to ask you about that, man, because I think that that's interesting. You talked about that as a defining point in your life. That is something that
Yes.
really changed who you were, not just as an artist, but obviously as a person. Talk to me about that, man.
Um, my life pretty much starts off with me growing up, being abandoned when I was 18 months. I was abandoned in Compton. I was found in the apartment, took by the authorities and the children's services, and I was placed in a temporary foster home where Miss Price ended up adopting me when I was 18 months. She ended up adopting me, and once she did, like I said, as growing up, grew up, in the neighborhood, and I was a part of the gang life. So it's one of those things to where they say you never bring drama where you rest your head. But I was so wild and out of control, I was bringing drama to where I rest my head. And during this time, Miss Price had got sick. She had stomach cancer. So her daughters had pretty much asked me to leave. They put me out. Back then, I was mad and didn't get it and understand it. But as I got older and really looked back on my life, like I was bringing drama from the house getting raided to,
Yeah.
people coming shooting at the house to you name it. So they put me out when I was 16. And from there, no other place to call home but the streets. So that's really also when a lot of the OGs pretty much embraced me, because I was staying pillar to post, sleeping wherever I could. So the hustle, became my finance, and growing up in Compton, man, like hustling is a thing,
Yeah.
to get you over, the hump, to keep you surviving when you couldn't get a job.
Hmm.
And, I lived that life, kept going in and out of jail. December the 31st, 1991 is when it actually happened. And I got to a point in my life to where I didn't have no structure, no family structure. I had my first child that I couldn't see because I was homeless. So I felt like I came to the end of my roads. It's like the devil took over the way I thought, the way I felt. And prior to me doing it, I had suicidal thoughts. And I was one of the cats from the neighborhood who was, a shooter. I was well respected in the streets at my age from older people and young people because the dirt I was doing. So for me to come to one of the older homies and say, "Man, I'm thinking about killing myself," I don't guess it was more of pride, because I feel like people gonna laugh at me, which a lot of people do when people say they, don't want to live no more. The first thing people, "Oh, you dumb, you an
Right.
idiot,
Hmm.
you crazy," when technically it's not necessarily always that, or they want to flood you with medication.
Hmm.
So December the 31st, 1991, I actually took a gun and put it to my head and clicked the hammer back, man, and I pulled the trigger, and the bullet entered right here.
Yeah, oh, man.
God spared my life, and He spared my life for a reason. And after I got out the hospital, it's like I was still living homeless. I came home to the same situation. I could spend the night here at a friend house and here, but there's only so much your friends can do for you. You
Hmm.
know, it's been many a times, like my loved one Trout, rest in peace. His mom used to wake us up all the time. Didn't I tell you don't bring that boy here no more?
Right. Right.
You where he live? He ain't got nowhere to go. Which he like, no, mom, he don't. He don't have nowhere to go. Well, he can't stay here no more. So, life carried on. But I really wanted to take music serious. Then it was almost like you could say I hit the restart button,
Hmm.
and I wanted to take music more serious at that time.
Hmm. And was that what would you count that moment in time when you released your first formal project? Like, were you as an artist, OG Suicide? So that was that after that,
That was
occurrence?
after. Yeah, that was after because a buddy of mine named Lee, we started. I told Lee I want to really take the music serious and just start writing about my life. This was after I got out the hospital. This was in '92, and back then, man, we had a 4 track, that we recorded with. So you had to do the vocal, the track
Yeah.
on one, the vocal, the hook, and whatever else on the fourth one. And we created music, and it really started sounding good because I actually was writing about what I experienced, what I was really going through. It wasn't fiction, it wasn't a gimmick, it was my actual life.
Hmm.
And I took it. I remember Haywood had put out Tidy T Project, so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna take it up here and let Haywood hear it. And this is before he had became a godfather to me. This was in '93. So when I took it to him and I played it for him, he was blew away. Like man, let me sign you to Eve Jam and let me show you, the ropes of the business, and let's put an album out on you. So I signed with Eve Jam, and from there, like, man, he started bringing all the old school cats, to the studio because my first album that came out in '95, we put out a maxi single in '94 with 4 songs. But in 95 was the self-titled album Suicide, with Final Exit being the leading track off of that project. Every song on there is all live instruments. Back now is, you got the Fruity Loops and drum machines and different things. But back then, when we put a clap in the beat, it was someone actually went in the vocal booth and made it clap. And bass, drums, everything was all live on that album. And right now to this day, that album came out in 95. And right now to this day, it's still a classic album.
And who were some of the producers that you worked with on that first album?
Man, Odell. Oh wow, it's been so long. Like cats that played for like Rolls Royce, the group Rolls Royce. Lee was the main producer. Anthony played keys. Like a lot of people that worked with Haywood back in the 70s. So a lot of bass guitar players from the 70s, and that was, playing with the Ohio players that played bass for a lot of the people back in those days. They played on this particular project.
So, you released your album. Now we're going into the new millennium.
Yes.
And you are now not just, now you're not just an artist, you're a father.
Yeah.
And you talk about one of the joints, man. I like, on Thank You, which is, one of your most recent album. It's a prayer. You're really, you're really praying.
It is.
I love the spirit of the songs. You talk about your children, you talk about your wife. You talk. It's a very heartfelt. But when you moved into 2000, man, you became more. That's where Compton Legend, man, really started to, I'll say, grow, because you weren't just an artist anymore. Now, whether you liked it or not, you were a mentor.
Yes.
You were a father. So talk to me about how that grew. I mean, where you were now more responsible. You was an OG in many circles. Talk to me about after 2000, how that felt.
It really started from 1998. I was working with Big Jess and Droop. We put out a project called Wonder Why, which Eve Jim, Executive Entertainment was the name of the label, was in Gardena, California. This particular project is when I toured to Japan. And Big Jess ended up getting incarcerated. He ended up getting locked up, and, he got a lot of time. And I pretty much, held the studio down for as long as I could, and the label down until where it came to a point to where we had to close the doors on it. So from there is where I shifted into doing CG Records, which is Seidel Gang. And from there is when I really, started grabbing a bunch of different artists out the neighborhood and bringing them together and creating, mixtapes, because we put out the Go Hard or Go Home Volume 1, and then we did in 2003. And then Go Hard and Go Home Volume 2, we put that out in 06, which was a double CD. And then from there was this more behind the scene, doing mostly mentoring and things like that, putting singles out here and there. And a lot of my overseas fans, it really got to the point to where I hadn't put an album out in pretty much in 20 years. So an album from me started being highly in demand. From overseas to the people in the States, like, man, okay, you're doing this and that, you helping all these other artists, you mentoring, but what about you? When are you gonna do something? Like, are you still doing music? But I was still putting singles out here and there. So my my bro Stone Beats, which does tracks, he started making cooking beats for me. My god brother Epidemic, he started putting beats together, and we put the record called I'm the Reason, which I put out there that shocked a lot of people, because in this game, man, you can help everybody you want, from the heart, but there come a time where some people forget who helped them. They'll forget who helped pave the way, or who showed them the ropes. So I'm the Reason was pretty much shots fired. you know, because it was like, I'm the reason why your lyrics is hot. I'm the reason why you want you or not. I'm the reason y'all could chill on the block. And I don't give a damn if you like it or not. You know, that was the chorus to it. So that song, man, like it spoke volume, you know, to not just for me, but for everybody that's helped someone that forgot who helped them. And
Right.
I mean, it touched a lot of people. I have a video on YouTube too to that particular record. And from there, me and Ep, man, we got in the studio. Well, I would come to his house because he got a studio at his house, and we spent 3 years recording OGs Are Forever because I wanted to make sure every verse, every word, every letter in the word was on point, was on key. Everything. Mad Scientist, we got him to play bass on a bunch of records. Got some up and coming artists. April Page, who's singing on Tragedy. Man, just different artists, you know, from all around, and bring them and put them on the project to really bring it together to make it make sense. And I dropped the album last year, May 31st of last year, and the momentum of it is it just won't die down.
Right.
You know, since I've released this project, it's like the momentum was here. Now it's
up there.
Right. I just released it, and I released it last year.
Well, what I like about the album, you talked about in '95, you was using live instruments, and you had your Godfathers, you know, a lot of his associates, and stuff. But then we fast forward 25 years later, and you stayed true. You're still using. Shout out to my boy Mad Scientist, by the way.
Yeah.
And you're still using that same blueprint, which I mean, I'm just such a big fan of live instrumentation.
None's better than live sounds.
Yeah. So
and
you're still
my other producer, Day One. Shout out to Day One. I mean, I got from on the album Corrupt, my boy Caviar, Cocaine, Little Flip, Paul Wall. Like I got some cats on there, you know. And Day One, he produced several tracks on there. One of the records he produced on there that I really like a lot is The Hustle Don't Stop with me and Paul Wall, which is a remake from an old classic record. And oh yeah, it's making a lot of noise, man. People really love it.
You and I had talked, man. And you said something so interesting, man. Earlier, you had said, you know, if you're not willing to put in 15 years in the game, you know, talk about that, man. Because I just felt that was so on point. So talk about that.
It is because, you know, some artists jump in the music game and the egotistics of everybody want it. Like I want it to happen. I want a deal. Everybody want a deal. Everybody want a deal. And I tell people all the time, don't look for a deal. Let a deal look for you.
Yeah.
That's how it works out better for you. Stop chasing the deal and let the record deal, let the label chase you. But I also let artists know that's coming into the game, they thinking like they're going to be rich in a year because they see all the different artists in the game, but they don't know what those artists did to get where they at. They don't know the footsteps those artists took. Some people get lucky, some don't. Me, I don't mind being the turtle in the race with the rabbit. That's how I always live because I'm going to win in the end. Most definitely. But I tell artists, if you're not willing to dedicate 5 to 15 years of your life into your music career, then music is not what you want to do because nothing is guaranteed. It's not guaranteed. You can spend a lot of money. You can spend a lot of time, which time you can't get back. So use time wisely. You can't get a return on the time you spent. But this is all about mastering what you're doing. It may not work for you. It may not happen for you in 5 years, in 10 years, in 15 years. But guess what? That 16th year may be that year that it happened for you. But you'll never know if you stop. So you got to keep going. You never give up. You know, that's one thing I've learned, you know, me being a suicide survivor. If I'd have known I'd have no regrets in life. whatsoever, because everything I've been through made me who I am. But had I known what I know now, things would have been a lot different. But I'm glad of what I went through because it made me look at life different. You know, the way compared to how I looked at life when I was a heavy gang member. So now I'm 51 years old, four children, 4 grandkids, my 5th grandchild on the way, a wife of 25 years who been in my corner through thick and thin, through it all, through the ups and downs, like never left my side. Like life is good. So my calling, which I used to think it was my music. You know, I've always thought, well, my calling is my music. I gotta put my stories out there to inspire and uplift. Yeah, that's cool, fine and dandy. But what I've came to realize is my true calling is inspiring others to never give up. Reach out to people that's considering suicide, that it crossed their mind. To be the face of never give up. Because over the years, I've talked people out of committing suicide from all around the world. I got people that hits me up from Russia, Moscow, Russia. And you know how it is out there. It's bad. Kenya, Ghana, Africa, India, just Australia, France, everywhere, all around the world that reach out to me that either seen one of my videos, they seen one of my interviews, they heard my music, and it blows them away. Like, wow, you really did this. You shot yourself in the head, and look at you now. And I tell them, yeah. So you can make it through. No matter what you're going through, every storm shall pass one day. You can't say when. Nobody knows when, but the more you putting one foot in front of the other, moving forward to better your life, it's gonna bring it it's gonna bring it to you. But you gotta go after it. It's not gonna come to you. Success is not gonna fall out the sky in your lap. You gotta go get it, but you can't give up. The people get frustrated. It'd be like 1 or 2, 3 years in, and they're frustrated. Like, oh man, I can't take it no more. Like, no, it's gonna get good. I know many of people that have experienced wanting, like my boy Ben Miller. Ben Miller is in Germany. He used to want to take his life. He used to talk to me. He was trying to do music. He used to get frustrated behind it, and it's just not working. And I kept talking to him. I stayed in his ear. I put one hand on this side to where everything I was telling him didn't exit on the other side. Right. And right now, to this day, he got a degree in cooking. He's a chef. He's doing good. His life is good. He's there for his lady, his daughter. And when he hit me up, now he'd be like, man, I'm glad I listened to you, because if I didn't listen to you, I would have left my daughter and my lady behind, and I would have been out of here. But he like, look at my life now. I said, that's it. Consistency is everything. You can't rush success. You just got to let it happen. God knows when he wants you to be successful. And he's only going to allow you to be successful at the right time. That's what I learned. When I was gangbanging, it wasn't meant for me to be who I am now. It wasn't meant for me to be successful, because I'd have messed it off. I'd have did something dumb, and it would have went away just like that. Because you could be here today, and one mistake can have you here. And I learned that. So now I think, just like I think before I speak. I make decisions and I make moves that's going to help me prosper in life. That's going to help me gain. And not just me, but people that's watching me. People that tune in to see, what do I have to say? What advice do I have to give? And I mean, I love it, man. And I don't do it for a profit. I don't do it for a pat on the back. This is my calling. This is my whole reason of why I'm still here. It took me a while to learn that. Like, I'm really here for a reason. I was sitting back one day, like, just looking back on my life, like, wow, man, I've been through some crazy things, from shootouts to getting shot. I got a 223 round in my back in '07. Like, God tested me. in 2007, because I was shifting away from the street life, and in '07 we was in my neighborhood getting ready to go to the studio, and I remember we were standing outside. It was night, and the young homie Loco was like pointing like, who's that in the field right there? And as we all looked, you just heard glock, 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 glock. And I remember getting hit, and my son, my junior, he was in the house. And it was about 8 of us out there. And another one of my buddies, Melvin, he got hit. The bullet went through his back and came out his chest. He lost a lung, but he lived. And the bullet split my intestines completely in half.
Wow.
To where my surgeon was from Russia. You know, my surgeon was a female. All she did specialize in is AK bullets, and they was able to cut off the bad side on both sides and reconnect it. And I knew that was a test from God. And then in 2008, in Compton, buddy of mine's, it was his birthday. I've been knowing him since he was a kid. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to stop by real quick just to say what's up. I pull up, park my Hummer across his driveway, which was a good thing. I didn't know I was doing that to save lives, but it was a good thing. So I park it there, and I, was on the phone, and I remember someone saying, hey, y'all, watch that car. Watch that car. And I do like this, and as I look up, see 2 young cats, man, the windows coming down, 2 young cats coming out. Like, if I'd have had something with me, I'd have murked both of them. But it's kids out there. So instead of, I ran towards where one of the kids was, and I'd rather take a bullet than see a kid take a bullet. And I was hitting the leg that time. But that was another test from God, I know, to see, was I going to get back to the vicious me? Mm-hmm. And I had to take that and keep moving forward. Mm-hmm. And keep doing and pursuing what led me to where I'm at right now to this day. The founder and CEO of One West Magazine with my business partner, Jason Pereira, with my bro Epidemic. Just became the COO of my business partner, The Native, who pretty much put out the OGs Are Forever. That's, he's a person I met some years back, and he really, liked my music. So he was like, man, let's put an album out. So that's when we started working on the OGs Are Forever, and he put it out under Voodoo Nation LLC, which Keep It G off that album is on the charts right now on the digital radio tracker. It's number 32 on the top 200 and number 29 on the top 150. And it's only been out on the charts for like a week. It's been on the radio for a week, and it charted like that. So, my bro, Shorty, The Native, like I said, then I just became COO of his company, Voodoo Nation. So, man, everything it's just been all about improvements. That's it.
Do you see, because you now have other ventures, man, like